So thank you everyone for joining us today. I am doing a fireside chat with Julie for the second time, because the first time was the first time I'd ever done a fireside chat and I forgot to record it. So slapped wrists for me. But in my discussions with Julie, we had a similar feeling about going into the void. And touching the void is what I've called this series. I'm going to be speaking to a number of people who go into the void or into no mind state in different ways. And Julie and I have a similar way to do it, and it's very gentle. It's not I'm deep into a space of no mind, or I'm deep in a meditation and it's taken me a number of hours to come out of the meditation. That's not the way I operate. And I think Julie as well has a different way of touching the void, getting into the void. But before we go into that, I would love, Julie, if you can tell us a little bit about your story. I haven't really said much about your story to anybody. So I'd love for you to tell us how you used your method of touching, getting in touch with source, loving yourself, and healing the illness that you had.
Sure. How long do you want me to give this bit, Mona?
So we've got an hour, so half an hour, and then
right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we're open to questions at the end.
Yeah, and then okay.
So I basically went in for a routine operation. I was about to move my business one premises to the other, and I planned the operation accordingly so that it was all a clean break. What I wasn't expecting was to come out of the operation being told that they'd found a tumour. So I was really sure at the time, I'm sure it'll be fine, just a bit of chemo, and you'll be back on the road again. But they did the full body CT, only to come back with the fact that the tumour I'd been told was aggressive. It had gone to the peri-aorta. There were suspicious lesions on the lungs, and I was registered at hospice. So this was a day before. It was the day that the clinic shut on Christmas 2016. So about 6 years out. And what I can say is, once you're given that all clear at 5 years, you can start to relax, just because they say you can. But it does make a difference. Even with all the best Joe Dispenza, beliefs in the world, I don't think about cancer every day now. And that takes a long time, I think, to get to that stage, even when you do this work. Can I just say that? But I'm out the other side. I don't do that anymore, folks. There is life after cancer. So to go back to Christmas 2016, I basically wound down my business. Not much point. You're told you're going to die. And so I had lots of time on my hands. I was able to claim some critical life insurance, which took the pressure off of me. The biggest thing I chose to do was to leave my marriage. Mainly because I've been told by an integrative doctor that she had clients that when they did that, their cancer did magically disappear. I thought, okay, well, it's worth a go. Talking about, letting go of things that don't serve you. That's what a terminal prognosis did for me. The hospice were wonderful, giving me couples counselling to enable that to happen as easily as possible and as in a loving way as possible. So in the May of the following year, 2017, I moved into a flat which I called my sanctuary, which was a flat that my husband and I owned. We got the tenants out and I moved into that, which was just down the road from the marital home. And our daughter was 11 at the time. To be perfectly frank, she was my reason to live. I think if I didn't have her, I probably would have let go and died and not looked for routes out. I think at this point, it's really important to say that you've got to want to live, do this. And people say, well, that's a stupid question. Of course, everybody wants to live, but you'll be surprised at how many people don't. And what I will say is if people are open and they choose not to, fully respect that and enable them to let go. So I think a lot of loved ones around cancer patients tell them things like, you must fight this, you've got this, come on, we're going to do this. And that pressure, I don't think, is the most loving way of handling that situation if you're in that situation. So coming back, so I was spending a lot of time by myself in this sanctuary, and I had heard of Chris beat cancer. And so I started looking into things like the truth about cancer, all of this, because once you're told you're going to die, it gives you permission to go on the web and look for stuff that might help you. So I became an avid researcher of anything that might enable me to survive, see my daughter into adulthood. And what the oncologist did say is that she would offer me chemo because it may buy me more time. And whilst I was in shock, and any day they could give me was valuable, with private medicine insurance, as soon as the clinic opened in the January, I was there having really strong chemo, expecting my hair to fall out and the rest. In the first session of chemo, I had a panic attack through one of the injections I was given. It created what felt like a heart attack. So I started to feel, I asked the oncologist at this point, how many days does this give me exactly extra? And to be told, we don't know, everybody's different, which I thought, why the hell am I doing this? I did go through the second one, they altered the drugs and it was a lot easier, but my hair was starting to fall out at this point. And my daughter was starting to be affected by the idea, Mummy, your hair's not going to fall out, is it? And so on that basis only, I decided, right, whatever time I've got left, I want it to be as easy as possible for her. And I want to spend quality time with her, which I found chemo was making me feel like I was at death's door. And I'd been feeling really ill before the operation. And so that brief window of a month after the operation, before I had chemo, I was starting to feel really, really good, better than I'd felt for years. And I thought, that's how I want to feel with whatever time I've got left before I die. And that's why I gave up chemo after the second of the 6 rounds I was meant to have. So I was going to be offered radiotherapy, all the rest, but I turned it all down. So that would be at the end of January, I made the decision to quit the chemo 2017. By the May 2017, I'd moved into the flat. So I was starting to feel pretty good by the time I moved into the flat because I'd quit the chemo. But of course, I was at this point still expected to die. I did whatever I could, being quite proactive. I did change my diet. So I did follow the Chris Beat Cancer Square One program diet. I was on a lot of supplements. So I basically went down the alternative route. I can name lots of things that I did. I don't want to go too much into this because obviously we're here to talk about Joe Dispenza. I found Joe Dispenza's work through listening to Hay House Radio quite quickly when I was chopping up veg in the kitchen in the flat. Along with people like Anita Moorjani, has a wonderful book called Dying to Be Me. Anybody here with cancer or anybody here that's been told that they're going to die, I strongly recommend that book by Anita Moorjani, Dying to Be Me. It enabled me to let go of the fear of my daughter losing me, because I realized that was the main fear that I was holding. What would life be like for an 11-year-old girl whose mother has died? And so I went to one of England's best, I think, cancer charities called Penny Bron UK, who were in Bristol on a retreat, and in their library was full of cancer books. And that's where I found Dying to Be Me by Anita Moorjani. And that enabled me to emotionally release the fear wrapped around my cancer affecting my daughter. That was a big turning point, because once I was able to do that, I suddenly started to have more energy to focus just on me and the cancer. So I was living in Hay House, which was full of, I'm assuming that everybody here knows what Hay House is. They're a publisher set up by Louise Hayes, sadly dead now, who herself had cancer and managed to do the impossible. And through her own health journey, she set up this publishers to enable people to understand things like Joe Dispenza's work, amongst many others. So I was regularly having scans at this point, and the scans were looking better every 3 months, bit by bit, millimeter by millimeter. So I knew that I was doing something right. I'd made lots of changes. So my whole environment, come back to Joe Dispenza's work now, I'd literally changed my physical environment. I literally changed the people who were surrounding me. Every day was different in terms of what time I got up, what I was doing, what I was thinking. Even what I was feeling had a new focus now, which was about survival. So I think there is some relevance about completely creating a new reality in terms of your day-to-day existence as soon as you can, if you're up against a time prognosis.
So can I ask you, at some point in your story that you've just told us, you switched from I want to have a nice quality of life before I go to, oh, something's working for me. What was it that changed? Was it the book by Anita, or was it something else?
To be frank, moving out of the marital home was a really big, good move. And then the next one was, yes, letting go of the fear of my daughter in all of this. And as the scans started to get clear, it was no surprise, because I knew I was feeling good. Because all you ever have with cancer is how you feel. That happens on two levels, doesn't it? How you physically feel and how you emotionally feel. So I started to feel in charge, I guess. I think that it's really important to know that you're not a victim to anything, that you're in charge, even whether it be whether you choose which medical route to go. Because the route that I took isn't the only route, obviously, that is right with cancer. I fully respect everybody's own individual choices with cancer. I just did the right thing for me. A lot of people do what I did, they die. But of course, that's what this work is all about, isn't it? It's not necessarily about what you do in the material plane. It's about the future that we choose to create for ourselves and how we go about that. So when it came to Joe Dispenza's work, I started to look to see if I could go on a retreat, and there was nothing available anywhere in Europe. So I looked, and I realized at that point, back in 2017, you had to do a progressive course before you could do an advanced retreat. And at that time, it was online. I paid to do the online progressive intensive course. So I was at home doing that from my laptop. And so I can remember doing the pineal gland meditation from just in the laptop, which felt completely different to doing it on a week retreat in London last year. So yeah, I was doing everything I could. So that would have been around month 6, moving out. And I was clear scan-wise by month 9.
Wow.
So I was already on the right route. So that kicked in and, month 6 and kept on going. But everything Joe Dispenza talks about at the retreat that I assume everybody here went to, he talks about what everybody from the research that he'd done that managed to turn impossible cancer prognosis around. When he was talking about it, I thought, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. And all of these things, all of these factors are written down in a book called Radical Remission by Dr. Kelly Turner, if anybody's interested. That's another book I highly suggest anybody with a terminal prognosis reads. Yeah, coming back. So every day I would make sure that I was doing something that got me out of the flat, that I would enjoy, mixing with people who I knew had a positive effect on my energy. And probably one of the best things I did in that respect was hyperbaric oxygen. I went to an MS centre in Warminster, not far from me, where you could pay as a cancer patient to have oxygen in a chamber, mostly with other MS people. But now and again, I'd bump into people like myself with cancer. And that was a really positive charity with upbeat people that were making an effort with whatever condition they had. And there's lots of laughter, messing about, and focused people. At that place, I'd also met a hands-on healer who's working there for free, who's since become a good friend. So we'd often talk in terms of getting out of the way for him to do the hands-on healing.
Right.
So when I came to retreat, and of course, Dr. Joe taught us how to do the healings around other people, I realized a lot of what he was saying was what this hands-on healer would talk to me about, what he did and how he went about it. That was insightful. So I was being surrounded by really positive people in loving environments, doing the best for everyone, surrounding myself with as much love as possible. I should say also that I stopped being in contact with my mother, with whom she was an alcoholic when I was a child, and wasn't always the best person to still be around. And each time she called me up, it ended up just getting me upset, because she'd always put her foot in it somehow and end up getting me upset. And so I asked my sister if she could speak with her and ask her not to be in touch until I was ready for her to be. So that setting those boundaries to ensure that you keep your vibration high is really important. I started to lose a lot of weight at this point because I had gone vegan. So that was very much to my advantage. I went down to the dress size that I wanted to be. But of course, everybody around me thought that I was dying of cancer. You know, they expect to become emaciated, don't they? That was quite funny. You know, people hadn't seen you for a while, you'd lost weight, and of course they'd heard you're going to die, and they tend to cross the pavement, don't they? So yeah, interesting seeing how other people react to you and choosing how you react to them. Again, I found out who my real friends were, and quite often they're the people I'd known the longest, often since childhood, who start doing the most amazing things that are there for you. I can't say that I had many people I was surprised that weren't there. I think I was very lucky with my friendship circle. Trying to think what else now. So coming back to meditation and how I focused each day, I think a lot of you will realize that the shock of being given a cancer diagnosis, let alone a terminal prognosis, they say that shock tends to hang around for the initial 5 months. And for me, it was definitely there because I was starting to have stomach issues each time I ate afterwards. It was uncomfortable. I found that acupuncture was really good for that, relieving some of that quite quickly. But slowly, bit by bit, because I spent an awfully long time alone, I went very, very inward. And I'm an artistic person, and so I was very used to going inwards in my own inner world, drawing all the time as a kid or whatever. I was very comfortable with going inward. It didn't scare me. But I did start to commune in the same way. I always remember when I was about 11, I think our cat got lost. It didn't come home one night. I can remember sitting in the bath praying to God, saying, if it comes back, I'll believe in you forever, like children do. And it did come back. I thought, oh, that worked, didn't it? And I found myself reverting back to a similar situation. Like, okay, I communed with that. This time I didn't believe in God, but I thought, well, it's worth a go, isn't it? Talking to something larger than myself, creating some sort of contract.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I did do that. I'd go really deep and still within myself, connect with on Hay House Radio, they talk about your angel guides and all this sort of woo-woo stuff. Mona and I were talking about woo-woo earlier, weren't we?
Yeah.
So I'm not really into all these guides as such, but I thought, well, it's worth connecting with another voice or something out there, and making some sort of contract like I did before to get the cat back. So I was aware of homing in regularly with this set of beings with whom I'd made this contract, just regularly touching base, saying, use me as you will, get me through this as you will. I don't know, it just felt like the right thing to do, and it made me feel at peace and calm, knowing that I had handed over a lot of the responsibility to something larger than myself to do what was right for me. And I'd just spend a long time just in that space of just floating nowhere, because it was the only place where I could go, I could turn all of the thoughts completely off. Because I think at the beginning it's really hard to sleep, because your mind just goes through all that circular thinking of, you know, how much longer have you got left and all the rest of it.
And when you were going in, you weren't going into a deep meditative state, like, and shaking and all of the things that we go to a retreat and think we need to do in order to get a cure or a result of some sort.
That's right. I was always very uncomfortable with the idea of fighting cancer. You know, why not would you fight something that was inside you, that had grown inside you? It's not something like a virus that comes in and invades the body. It's something inside you. It's your body way of trying to adapt to something that's not right.
Yeah.
And so this whole gentle approach to, I understand now what I was doing really was metabolizing everything, physically, emotionally, everything, just trying to find balance. And when I did go to the retreat last year, this is where I think you and I touched base and we felt the same, maybe, Mona. I thought if I'd gone to this within that period of shock, the first 5 months, or to be honest, even the first year when I was so focused, I don't think it would have been money best spent at that time, because I would have thought, oh my God, I spent £3,000 on this. I better make sure I do this properly. And I think that I would have been too hyper focused on getting it right, knowing me with the personality that I do have. So going last year, I really enjoyed it and got so much more out of it, because it became more of a playground for me. So when we did that manifesting of things that you might want on day 3, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was a playground for me, and I chose a couple of things and I got them by the end of the week. I put the timeline on them of wanting them by the end of the week, and they arrived on the last day. So I learned that too. If you give a timeline, it can stick to the timeline. So try not to give one if you want it to be last minute. So yeah, just keeping it light. Your cancer is heavy enough without putting yourself under any more extra pressure. And that sense of feeling connected to something larger than ourselves that you get through meditation. I never felt alone through the whole process of being by myself in the flat, doing my diet, meditating, visiting all the different things I was doing, different blood tests, various things. I tended to combine as much of everything that felt right at the time. So I was doing emotional freedom technique, going into town to visit somebody that would do tapping with me. A lot of you might know the emotional freedom technique.
Yeah.
I was trying to do something on every level, like acupuncture, maybe for my stomach. I was doing things that I enjoyed doing that felt right for me. So I've met people, because I do belong to some cancer support groups. I did work for Yes to Life, an integrative cancer charity, last year. So I do run and facilitate a support group now. And I do see a lot of people who just trying everything and spending an absolute fortune on everything. And I think what I recognize when I see these people is that they haven't learnt to be still. And I realized, wow, I was able to do that really, really quickly. That standing still and feeling. That's what Dr. Joe says, isn't it? It's about being aware of your feelings and your energy to create that new reality. So I would spend time imagining being with my daughter, choosing a wedding dress, holding my first grandchild, all of this sort of thing day to day. I could be, preparing meals, and I would focus on the feeling of what that might feel like and be like and look like and smell like, and smelling a baby's head. You name it, I was doing all of that.
What did you do? What did you do when you were feeling fear? Or when maybe if you had symptoms that were, I mean, I don't know, painful, or people get uncomfortable, they can't breathe. How would somebody deal with that?
The worst time I found, I think most cancer patients would agree, is just before you go in for a scan.
Right.
There's a term called scanxiety that pretty much describes it.
Yeah.
I found regularly the week or two before I was about to go for a scan that suddenly I would be feeling something that must be the cancer coming back.
Right.
I was feeling something.
Yeah.
And I usually had a dose of EFT that would get through the thing. Oh my God, the cancer's coming back. Blah, blah, blah. Tap, 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 tap. So releasing all the fear that goes around that. And of course, I go for the scan, get the results, and they're getting better all the time. So your mindset can create feelings of advanced cancer, if that's what it is. Then you start feeling things that end up not being there. So the mind is a pretty powerful thing around pain, that's for sure. Must admit, touching wood here, I was lucky enough to not be in any real discomfort or pain from a tumour. I managed to get the tumour out before it was, I suffered it enough when it was in, but I managed to get it out before it led to too many other problems. I often think that I was really lucky to be told that I was going to die, because it enabled me to turn my back on a lot of cancer treatments that in actual fact give a lot of really harsh side effects. So I quit those very quickly, the side effects, which a lot of people say are often worse than the cancer itself. But if they'd told me that it would cure me, I do believe that I would have done it. So, which is why I always respect the choices that people make on that one. Until you're there, you walk those shoes, you don't know what you're going to choose or what it's going to be like. So yeah, that's exactly half an hour, Mona. 1 minute over.
Well done. Well done. So part of this conversation was about how you get in touch with that sense of yourself, and you have touched on it a bit. But I think in our last conversation, I remember you saying what you did before you got out of bed. And that to me is touching the void on a daily basis, I don't have to sit down and put headphones on and close my eyes. I can do this in a waking state, which Dr. Joe kind of tells us to do when we do the walking meditations. But you had a situation where it wasn't a luxury to go and do a walking meditation in a nice park or on a beach. You had a physical condition you had to deal with. And so you were doing what the walking meditation equivalent is on a daily basis in the morning. So can you tell us what that was and what you did?
I think the worst thing once you've been told you're going to die is, to be honest, waking up in the morning. Until you're there, you don't realize how quickly the thoughts kick in, even before you're even slightly waking up, they kick in.
Right.
So the best way I found of handling that was to go from thinking to feeling. So I remember I'd organised a silk pillow, because apparently if you have a pillowcase made of silk, your hair's less likely to fall out so much. So I was my head on this silk pillow, and you just start to sense, oh, the silk, the lovely smooth silk on my head. You know, the feeling of the duvet, the feather duvet over you, the weight of the feather duvet, where it might be touching on your legs, your hips, or whatever, you start to sense. And then you go from physical feelings to what you might be hearing. Is it bird song? Is it the sound of the radiator starting to tickle as the water's coming through them? You start to go through all of your senses of being alive.
Mm.
Yeah. So once you get to practice doing that, you're starting to be able to function more, because your thoughts can really disable you from functioning at all. So moving then out of bed into the bathroom to brush my teeth. Again, a little thing from Louise Hay. I'd use little stickers on the mirror to focus on my thoughts, to get me back into what I would be thinking and feeling, to get into a more positive mindset. I hesitate using the word positive mindset because I was never in denial about cancer. It's very easy to do this work and be in denial. Oh, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. I don't have cancer. When you do have really heavy negative feelings, sometimes the only way they're ever going to go is through emotional release. You just need a damn good cry.
Mm.
And to be aware of that and not suppress it is just as important as doing the kind of work that I'm talking about with focus. Getting that balance right of an emotional release and being aware of raising your vibration of where your emotional scale is. So to move from despair up the level to different emotions to acceptance. Acceptance is a midway point. If you can start moving above acceptance into hope, and contentment, and you start moving up and up and up, getting as high as you can do, making that a daily practice of pinpointing in the morning where you're at on that scale of emotions and focusing on moving up all the time. It just becomes a play thing. It's a skill set that you just start to strengthen. I still use it now, you know, when shit hits the fan. But wait, okay, where am I? Okay. move this back up. I mean, it all fits in with Abraham Hicks, doesn't it, in manifesting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the morning. Then what about the rest of the day? Because obviously, were you working at the time or
No.
no?
Not much point in working if you're going to die, is there?
So then that you have more hours to wallow potentially, or feel.
That's an interesting point, isn't it?
But you clearly you didn't do that because I would want to keep myself busy or occupied.
Maybe this is the creative in me. I
Yeah.
saw it as a chance to, that feeling of being creative, seeing whatever time that I had left as a creative rather than somebody that sinks into depression. Luckily, again, touch wood, I've never suffered from depression. You see, I think the gifts that you're born with, as with your personality type, I was always told, you know, that I was gullible as a child. And it's as Dr. Joe says, doesn't it? Those that are more, he doesn't use the word gullible. What's the word he uses? Can't remember now. But those that are more likely to believe things will find the work easier. And that's what part of my personality is, to always see the best in people and to want to believe. And yeah, that Anna Green Gables attitude, you know, got me through a lot.
That's interesting. Then you must have spent your day doing the things that made you feel that this is not going to affect you or that you're getting better. How did you maintain that morning, or did the morning activity set you up for the day?
I think as time went on, I developed more of a routine that got stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
It's those early days when you're in shock that are the hardest, when you're trying to establish a routine that works.
Yeah.
So, for example, with the diet that I was doing, Chris Walk talks about doing it for 2 years, which was strict vegan, healthy vegan. So there were lots of time frames I was working towards and striving towards that gave me focus as well. Again, the creative side of me loved cooking new things, chopping new things, trying to make them as colourful as I could, knowing that each colour, nutrition-wise, represented something good that my body needed. Restoring my gut biome. I did a lot of research into the gut biome. So I was studying and learning a lot. That wasn't necessarily about cancer. It was about nutrition.
Yeah.
Understanding the larger picture of, politics behind the cancer industry. I got fully into the whole subject, wanting to understand all of the joined up thinking. So my focus was on understanding and doing anything positive that I could that could build up my body, especially if the cancer had destroyed the balance of my gut. I wanted to understand what I could be doing to restore it. So yeah, I could tell you a lot about poo. And eating different things and how it affects your body and your strength. And the one good thing I found about being vegan is that it did make my spiritual connection easier, crisper, cleaner, lighter. So I can understand why Buddhist monks eat the way that they do.
Okay, that's
definitely fast tracks a better connection when you eat clean.
You still eating?
No, I've got to get back to doing that now. It does make a difference. The trouble is, my daughter would never be vegan. I was ending up having to cook 2 meals a lot of the time. Once I got clear, I love food. I love meat. But I do intend, now that I've moved, to get back to all of that. I've got a bigger kitchen now and more space and time to start doing that again. Once Mum, maybe moves on, I can focus more on that.
Does anybody have any questions? What, 20 minutes? So do ask away. In the chat. No?
They must have asked them all last time.
I think there are different people on. No questions, guys? Oh, there is. Jan, would you like to?
Would you mind mentioning some of the other alternate therapies that you did? I know you said you didn't really want to go into that end since this was more of a Dr. Joe, but if you could hit on some of those, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so the diet was obviously a big thing for me. When I chose to quit chemo, the oncologist did try to encourage me to do the third round. And her major argument was that if I were to give up that particular chemo that was meant to be good against my tumor, I wouldn't be able to go back to it. And because of that, I thought, well, maybe plan B is if I do chemo, find out which other one might be good. And you can pay for blood tests called the RGCC blood test, which is a laboratory in Greece that basically puts your circulating tumor cells in your blood in a petri dish against all the different chemos. And what was useful about that is it did come back with another chemo that was just as good as the one that I had been given. I'd probably have had to go to a clinic somewhere abroad to get it if I'd got to that point. But I felt reassured having that information that I could also let go of this dark cloud that the oncologist was holding over my head, trying to bribe me to do more chemo. Another part of that RGC blood test that you pay extra for is to understand which supplements and alternative substances reacted well in the petri dish against your cancer. So the ones that came out well for me were super artemisinin. These are all tablets that you can buy. That particular one is very strong. You need to have a regular blood test for that to check your liver and kidney function. There's another one called genistein and another one called soya isoflavones. So they're all natural substances that I did take. So I built that into my regime. I also took a lot of supplements that the integrative doctor that I was working with suggested. So I was taking a lot of supplements. Gosh, it's so far. I was drinking filtered water, an awful lot of filtered water. Look at it behind me, actually. Can you see it? Over there. It's next to the fridge. There. That silver thing is a Barclay water filter. I would have loads and loads of water for the purpose of trying to flush my system as much as possible after the chemotherapy. But obviously to hydrate is really important. I was rebounding. I bought myself a little mini trampoline. Purposes of that is to get your lymph nodes moving, shifting the whole lymph system. Because the lymph system is sort of like it clears out the garbage from your system, and the way that it clears out is through movement. I was too weak to run or do anything, but it needs upward motion to work best. So I was rebounding a little bit, and then building up a little more as time went by. What else was I doing? So emotional freedom technique, we said, hard back oxygen. I do have a YouTube channel with all of this on, but I must admit I haven't done anything for a year now. I must add to it, called Cancer Soothe. So if you go onto YouTube and type Cancer Soothe, I've tried to outline as much that I did as possible on that. There's some videos. So I interviewed Chris Walk on there and people in my journey that I worked with. Yeah.
I'll share it.
Yeah, okay.
Does that answer your question, Jan?
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's right.
Elizabeth? If you're talking, you're muted. Okay.
Hiya, sorry, I couldn't find the mute button. I was wondering, when you talk about sort of connecting with the void or connecting with that higher sense of self or awareness or the divine, and you say you sort of do that in a gentle way, what's your experience? How do you sort of know when you've connected?
I think every time is different. It depends on what's going on for you, where you are and what you want from it. It's interesting. I've just seen things. What was your daily meditation routine as well? It depended on what was happening in my life and my day, and how much I needed to do it. I did definitely sit still in one particular space in one room that tended to be quite sunny. I found that quite comforting, and just sit still, usually cross-legged with my thoughts. Before cancer, I did used to go to a regular women's meditation group. There was sort of like 4 or 6 of us. So I had been used to just meditating for like an hour at a time. So I was very comfortable with that before I knew all about Joe Dispenza's particular meditations. So yeah, I'd say when I was doing it at the most, which was probably around that 5 to 6 months in, once I got over the shock and I could sit still for long enough with my thoughts. Yeah, definitely. Usually in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock, I found was a good time for me. I'd regularly do that. But meditation comes in many different shapes and forms, wouldn't it? Because I would say that when I woke up, that mindfulness routine that I had is a form of meditation. When I'd sit inside the tank for half an hour, hyperbaric oxygen, being just still with my mind, that I'd meditate there. Every chance I got, even driving the car.
Yes.
That's dangerous. You can go into a form of meditation, go into your thoughts. I love connecting. In fact, my favorite place is in the car, and when I'm on the toilet. There's something. I was the one that used to run our meditation group. They say this sounds weird, but when I'm on the toilet, there's something happens where, because you have to release literally, that can feel so nice sometimes. You're connected. You're safe. You're just in that safe, centered place. It's just you that feels nice. And there's something about that when you go into meditation that links with that is almost like a highway into it, if you can associate all these different feelings and sensations of getting somewhere else. I mean, we're all adults here, aren't we? I mean, sex is another way, tantric activity, sex. There's many different ways of reaching this state of consciousness that's pleasurable. It doesn't have to be hard work to get there if you follow your joy and your senses.
For me, it's music. I can put music on when everyone's gone to sleep, and I will just connect to this feeling of joy, of peace, of calm, benevolence that's within me. It's in me for me. The joy is in me for me. The love is in me for me. I don't need to. It's really strange. The more I connect with it, the more it comes to me at times. Like Julie said, it's really strange. Not when I'm releasing on the toilet, but the toilet is seated in such a way that the legs are, I've got short legs, so I'm in the right kind of posture, and sitting at work, sometimes you're in the right place and it just, a calmness comes over you. That to me is touching the void, because there's no ego. I'm not worried about my job. I'm not worried about a disease. I'm not worried about my husband being a git. I'm not worried about my kids driving me crazy. I'm not worried about the financial crisis. Nothing's in my head except this deep love for myself, for me. And then it ripples outwards. And then someone comes and ruins it for you. But you can get there 10 times a day. And then it comes to you when you're eating, when you're showering, when you're driving, when you're listening to music. All of a sudden it just hits you in such an amazing way. And then the more you do it, the more it happens. The more it happens, the more you do it. So it's a lovely feedback cycle where you don't need to have music or someone talking to you or, doing something. We can't, I think we put ourselves under a lot of pressure that we need to shake or we need to lose consciousness. We don't need to do that. It's an everyday thing.
Even dancing is another vehicle for me. But coming back to the car a minute, one thing I did do regularly, and love the car for, is I would regularly say I am healthy, whole and healed, regularly, lots of times in the day. And the wonderful thing about being in the car is I could shout it out loud. So I think there's something about using the voice and the energy. So I'd sit there in the traffic because nobody could hear me yelling, I'm healthy, whole and healed, and say it like I really meant it out loud. And you don't feel stupid when you do it in the car. If you do it in your flat, you think the neighbours might hear. But when you can, you convince that nobody else can. You don't care, do you?
So somebody asked, what was your daily meditation routine? Did you do it multiple times a day? I think you kind of answered that, but did you have a sit down, today I'm doing the pineal gland or whatever on a daily basis?
I found the pineal gland meditation I found on the progressive online course, doing it by myself, physically quite hard work. Trying to get the whole breath, and it's there, it's there, and was that one breath? Oh God, I've lost it. I did that too soon. Better do it again. There was quite a lot to learn when you did it online. It was so much easier to learn during our event, where you do it again and again and again. At crazy times in the morning. Actually, that's probably the best time to do it, wasn't it? We had to get up and down doing it. But I didn't put myself under any pressure, to be perfectly frank, to feel like I had to do anything at any time. Probably the thing that was the most pressure was the diet, if I were to say what put me under the most pressure, because I didn't want to go out to restaurants, because it's very hard to find restaurants where you could eat like that. That's probably the thing that controlled my life more than anything else, was being pretty pure about the diet. But that reaped its rewards. I'm glad I did that.
But I think also the flip side is if you did a diet and you struggled with it a lot and you weren't feeling good on it, that may not have helped you because you're generating feelings of not feeling good and more stress if you're, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. I think you have to have a mindset to stick to a diet as well, not do a diet and then it's a struggle for you.
Yeah. Because Joe Dispenza made a big point about food, didn't he?
He does, doesn't he? Yeah, he says it quite a bit.
And I think for most people, it is a huge pressure that you can do without. I enjoy the creativity of it. I think I was lucky. I like cooking, and it was something to focus on that distracted me. That was a positive thing to do. And I could link it up with the whole research about the gut biome. So each time I ate something, I understand what it would be doing for me. So choose and see the larger picture and how it all fits together made it less work, even though it was a lot of work.
Hi, Julie. Thank you for sharing. Hello. I just wanted to ask, did you have to go through a process of forgiveness for either yourself or for other people?
Yeah, that's a good question, Pamela. I did a lot of Louise Hay's mirror work. I don't know whether anybody's familiar with that. You stand in front of a mirror, you look in your own eyes, and you try to imagine as far back as you can as a child, some early experiences. And you look at that child in your eyes and you give it the love and holding that it never received, that you remember it not getting. So you do that through all of the times of your life that you remember that were painful or difficult, and you're there and you love that child. So it's a really teary thing. You're really well up. A lot of people can't even look at themselves in the mirror in their eyes. We look at ourselves every day to brush our teeth. But if you stand there and actually look eyeball to eyeball, it's not as easy as you think. And so if you're to do that process, going from as young as you can remember up until, I would even say mid-20s, there was a time, I only went up to age 18, and something happened in my early 20s that came back to bite me later, where I hadn't done the release on that incident that happened. It was quite traumatic. So if you can keep going for as long as you can remember with any trauma in your life, to be frank, it's a really good process. Either love yourself, hold yourself for that moment, and to release and forgive yourself and the other people around you that might have caused the difficult pain. So yeah, forgiveness and release, acceptance, all of this I did, yeah. Oh, thank you, Tracy. Your little heart came up just in time.
Does anybody else have any questions? Celine is the wrong way around now.
I'm curious how many people here are touched in any way by cancer, either themselves or loved ones. I was wondering what percentage of people here. Do we have any idea?
1, 2.
So enough of you to be making an effort, yeah. My heart goes out to you all. Don't be scared. You don't have to be scared. That's fascinating, Maggie, seeing it on the other side. Yeah,
I think it's useful to know this information, because you never know when you're going to come across somebody who has something, and you've got something in your back pocket to say, here's the Chris beat cancer, and here's Anita Moorjani, and all of these resources that you can hand over to people.
Yeah, and cancer is now 1 in 2 of us. A couple of years ago, it's 1 in 3. It's now been 1 in 2. I personally believe that if you look at the graph over the last 40 years of the increased use of chemicals, it correlates perfectly with the rise of use of cancer. I think that's no accident. I think that combined with stress is the recipe to disaster that we have on our hands.
And lots
Oh,
of
thank you, everyone. They're all popping up now.
yeah, thank you, Julie. That was really, really nice, and I recorded it this time. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. I will post this on YouTube, and I will share your website details in the group as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody, for turning up.
Thank you.
All the best on your journeys, everyone.
Yeah.
Take it easy. Don't work too hard. Just trust and believe you can do it.
Be happy.
Have fun.
Yeah. And tap in. Don't think you have to sit down and meditate to tap in. It's just there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
My
Meg.
pleasure.
Okay, thanks, guys. See you in the morning.
Yes, God
Bye.
bless.
All.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Mona.
Bye, Julie. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.